Good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. My name's Jackie, and today we're just going to be looking at bank corrections. So it is a quick learn, should take up to 30 minutes for us to cover all the content there for you today. So I am on my own today, so if you do have any questions, you're more than welcome to send them across, but do please bear with me. We'll try and cover them as we go through. If we can't, we'll cover those at the end of the session. Just going to jump ahead to the housekeeping first of all. So first of all, you will notice that you are placed on mute. That just means that you can't speak to me today, but if you do have any questions, you're more than welcome to submit them via the questions panel there. So that is the icon that looks like a speech bubble with the question mark in the middle. Also, there is a handout, so if you want to take a copy of the handout today, you can do so using the icon that looks like the document with the folded corner there, and that will give you access to the slides. Also, this webinar has previously been run and a recording is available on our recordings page. So if you do want to catch that, there will be a link in your follow-up email today to access that recording as well as others that we've run in the past. I'm just going to go back one. So first of all, what we're going to be covering is we're just going to very quickly talk about the types of bank transactions you may have in your software. And we're going to go through some methods of correction. So we're going to show you some different options of corrections. We're going to show you some common mistakes and then go through some common corrections as well via demonstration. Okay. So first of all, when we're talking about bank transaction types, we're talking about transactions that impact the bank account. You may not use all of these, so don't be alarmed if you see anything there that you're not familiar with, but these are all of the different ones that impact the bank. So the first one we're going to be looking at today is an internal transfer. So it's transferring from one bank account to another bank account, and that will show up as a JC and a JD, so it posts journals for you. We're also going to look at payments on account today, so I'll show you how to do a payment on account, but also how to fix that if you've allocated a transaction to the wrong transaction. We're not going to cover so much on paying an invoice, purchase payments and SRs, but we are going to be looking at bank payments and bank receipts. Now they are the same as cash payments, cash receipts, Visa payments and Visa receipts. They're just different transaction types depending on the bank account type you have selected. So all of what we're going to cover for those is exactly the same for those different types of transactions. And then we've got the refunds option, so sales payment and purchase receipt there. So those are the bank transaction types that you will find in the software. And we're going to show you some options here that will likely be applicable to any transaction type. So when you're looking at bank corrections, you have three options essentially. First of all, if possible, you can try and edit the original transaction. Okay, sometimes editing the original transaction is the easiest route, and if the software has to, it will take care of any reversals if the transaction's VAT reconciled, and it will post any sort of replacement transactions should it need to, which I'll show you in just a few moments. Another option is to delete the transaction, so that takes you back to square one as though the transaction was never entered, and sometimes that's the easier option, just to give you a clean slate and start over. What that will do is it will mark a transaction as deleted in your transaction listing, and that's not always a bad thing. So don't worry if you've got red marks in your audit trail, it's just highlighting where you've made a correction. And if both of those options fail, then you do have the option to post the opposite transaction. So sometimes you can't delete a transaction, you can't edit a transaction, there may be VAT restrictions on that. So what you can do is you can post the opposite transaction to reverse it essentially. Other things to consider are when you're doing an amendment to a transaction is the field that you're trying to amend. So we have different types of fields on a transaction. We have critical fields, which means when you amend that field, the original transaction will be cancelled and a new one is posted. So that is some of the key elements like the customer or supplier reference, the nominal code that you've used, the bank account reference you've used, the date on the transaction, the net and the VAT split, and also the tax code. Non-critical fields tend to be more the text fields. They have a bit more sort of information on them. So things like the transaction reference number or the reference field that you've popped in, the details, which is normally text, the department reference, the payment reference, and the bank reconciliation flag. So you can amend those, and what that means is it won't have to do anything to that original transaction other than make the change. It won't need to post any reversals and create new transactions. There is a link at the bottom there for an article that can help you on that, just to give you a bit more guidance on sort of how to retrace an item that's got a deleted or cancelled reference on them. Okay, so I'm going to move on to a demonstration first of all. We're going to pick up on journal transfers or bank transfers first of all, and just show you some of the different options for making corrections to those. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to enter a bank transfer. So I'm going to go into my bank module first of all to enter this. And like I say, this is an internal transfer. So this is you normally moving money in between your bank accounts, but it will post a journal on your behalf. Now, people sometimes do panic when they hear the word journal, because in the past, journals were notoriously difficult to amend. It's much simpler now, okay, which I'm just about to show you. So I'm going to post a bank transfer, and I'm meant to be doing a bank transfer from my main account, which is 1200 to 1220. But we know what it's like in everyday life. It's very easy to pick up the wrong account. So as you can see there, I have accidentally picked up 1210. So I'm just going to pop in £100 there and save this transfer. Just going to say yes to that one. So when we've done that, if we go into my bank current account and into the activity, if we scroll to the bottom of the activity there, what you should be able to see, sorry, I just clicked on a few options all at once there. At the bottom there, you can see the journal credit. So the journal credit is showing money leaving this particular bank account. What's great with this is I can edit or delete the transaction from here. Okay, so if I know immediately from looking at my activity, I don't need to note down the number, go back to transactions. I can make any amendments here. I can also view the transaction from here. And when we go into view and then view again, it gives us more information on there of what we can sort of amend or change. Now, it's not letting me amend anything there, as you can see. So I'm just going to close out of that for the moment because we were just in the view option. The other side of that has appeared in 1210. So I'm just going to bring this one across and into activity here. So you can see the journal debit that's showing the money coming into this particular bank account. Now, as we mentioned, that's incorrect. We've actually done it to the wrong account. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to edit this transaction. I'm going to use the option that we have here on this window here to edit from here. Now what that does is it doesn't bring up the traditional edit transaction window. It brings up the journal again for me. Okay, so it brings up the original journal. So this is an improvement that we've seen in the last few years. So in here, what I'm just going to do, everything else was fine, is I'm just going to change that back to the right code there. Okay, and then I'm going to click on save. And I'm just going to pause that message because I am doing this in demonstration data, which is a year behind, so we're just going to keep getting that message. And what we'll then do is we'll go and have a look at our transactions list. So I'm going to scroll right to the bottom. Okay, so what we can see here is the original journal I posted, which was the incorrect journal, is here. So we've got 1200 and 1210, and it's now got in the reference cancel C transaction 1242 and 1243, because the amendment we made there was to a critical field. it was to the nominal code. So it couldn't just delete it, couldn't just make the change without any reference to it. It had to cancel the original and post a new transaction for me. And the new transactions now appear down here for us. So now that is the correct transfer. I've done the transfer correct finally. So that's editing a transaction, okay? And the same would happen if it was a bank payment or a bank receipt and you made that amendment to a critical field, you would get something along those lines. So what I'm going to do next, I'm actually going to delete this transfer, okay? I've decided actually I just want to start from scratch. I want to delete this particular one. So what I need to do is just go up to delete. And yes. And again, it's picked up the pairing, okay? So you can't just pick one side of the journal and delete one side of it because we can't have an unbalanced journal. So what essentially we need to do is delete the pairing of them. So I'm going to delete those and delete yes. And what I just wanted to sort of highlight there is the difference, okay? So we've deleted this one, so you can see the wording's different, deleted JC. So it's clearly showing it's been deleted out of the software. So the last one I'm going to show you there is the manual reversal. Okay, so if we couldn't edit it for some reason, we couldn't delete the transaction, then what we'd need to do is a manual reversal. And this sometimes happens when we're doing something where a transaction has been reconciled for VAT. Now that's not as relevant to a journal transfer or an internal transfer because normally they're on a T9, but you might find yourself in a situation where you need to reverse the transaction. Now in the handout that we've given you today, we have actually given you a good sort of table of transactions and what their reversal would be. So if you do find yourself in that situation, if I do need to do a manual reversal, then you have got a list of what you can do there. So what I'm going to do, and this is really, really simple, really straightforward, is I'm going to do that journal transfer again. So I'm just going to go into bank transfer. So from 1200 to 1210 for £100 and save. So the manual reversal for that is as straightforward as just doing it the other way around. So we've just done it from 1200 to 1210. The reversal would be from 1210 to 1200. The key point I do just want to make here though is if you're reversing it off to pretend it never happened, so you want to remove the impact from your reporting, is you do need to make sure that the dates match, okay? So if you were to do one last week and reversed it off this week, it would mean that that value was impacting your reports for a period of a week. So do it to 1200, everything matching, and then save. So I'm going to go into transactions just to show you there. We've got the original journal that we just posted there, and then we've got the reversal. So there's nothing on that to indicate it's a reversal. That's where you might want to pop something into the reference column to make that obvious. Okay, so we're going to move on next. I'm just going to go back to the slide for just a second there. So what we did there is we showed you the editing of a critical field. So I showed you that that deletes and then re-enters the transaction. If you edit a non-critical fields, for example, if I changed the non-critical field on a transaction, like the department, then that would just complete the change for you. There wouldn't be any additional transactions. We've deleted the transaction and then that can be manually re-entered if needed. And then we've also posted the opposite transaction. So we've shown you all three methods there that you have for doing that. Okay, so what we're going to look at next is allocations. Okay, so I'm going to pop back to my software and do a demonstration of this one. So allocating transactions is the way of marrying off two transactions together. So how I'm going to show this one, I'm going to go into my customers, and you have the option for customer receipt, both in your bank module and your customer module. Both of them will take you to the same place. So don't be alarmed if you're thinking, oh, I go through bank. It's absolutely fine. It's the same option that you've got there, customer receipt. So what we're going to do is we're going to post a payment on account first. Okay, and I'm going to pick on this one here, because I know that's got some outstanding transactions. So as you can see here, we've got some outstanding invoices for Bob's Building Supplies, and what is a common mistake is customers may be posting it as a payment on account rather than allocating it to the invoice at that point in time. Now, that's not the end of the world because it is an easy fix, but it is a really common call for people who are maybe new to processing or new to Sage. So what the mistake they tend to do is they pop the amount in up here. So I'm going to pop in the £140.12. And that didn't work there. So I'm just going to 140. Okay, so that matches invoice 1091 here. Okay, and what tends to happen is when they click save, they get this message. They're not really sure what this means, so they just say yes. And what it means is they've actually posted a payment on account. It hasn't actually allocated it to the invoice. Now, when they run things like the age debtors report, it means that that invoice still shows as outstanding. Even though there's a value that matches it posted to the account, it still picks up on those reports. So what we need to do to sort of marry them off is go into the account again. And as you can see here, we've got both the SI, the sales invoice, and the payment on account now posted. But if we looked in the activity for this customer, which we'll do now, they'll both show as outstanding. Okay, so they'll get picked up on any reports. Let's bring this across for you. So when we look at them there, as you can see, they have the asterisk there for outstanding on them. So they're both outstanding. So I'm going to come back out of here. I'm going to go back into customer receipt. We're going to marry them off. So we're going to go back into here. And the way to do this is to find the receipt column for that item and to type in the amount that you're paying off if it's a partial payment. If it's a full payment, then you can use the pay in full option or F3 on your keyboard. So I'm going to use this option here, but I need to do it against both of them. Okay, I need to make sure I do it against both of them and that in the analysis total, we have 0. That indicates nothing transactionally will be posted. It's just going to allocate them together. Okay. Now, if I save that and go back into the account, you can see now they've disappeared. Okay, so they're now allocated against one another. Our reports are going to look better because I'm not going to have these outstanding values. However, you may think afterwards, oh, actually, I've just allocated that to the wrong invoice. I need to allocate that elsewhere. Now, in the past, I really didn't like this call because this was where we had to decide which transaction do we delete, which one's going to cause the least impact. And if that's allocated elsewhere, that can cause more complications. It was never straightforward. So what we did have to decide was to delete either the invoice or the payment on account. Now, thankfully, that's not the case anymore. We do have the unallocate option. Now, that will only become live when you have picked a transaction that is allocated. Okay, so you can see I've got a journal highlighted there. I can't unallocate that. I've got a bank payment. I can't unallocate that. But if I have an invoice that's paid off, unlike these ones, it will allow me to unallocate them. So these ones aren't paid off. However, if we go to my payment on account at the bottom, which is allocated, there you go, it's now in use. So I'm going to unallocate and it just cuts the link between the two transactions. The two transactions are still live in the software, nothing gets deleted, and it just means that they're ready for allocating elsewhere. So I'm going to say yes to that. And then when we go back into Bob's Building Supplies, in here, you'll see that they're both outstanding again, just ready to be rematched. There they are, the two at the bottom there. Okay. Okay, so I'm just going to pop back to the slides because that is unallocating. We're now going to have a quick look at editing a bank payment. So we went through and discussed allocating a payment on account to an invoice and making sure it's allocated correctly, and then also showed you how to unallocate so it can be manually reprocessed. Okay, so I'm going to just go on with some more examples. What I will say is obviously we can't do an exhaustive list of every possible scenario. So we're trying to give you as many different scenarios as possible with the opportunity for any questions that you may have. So again, if you do have any questions, please do make sure that you get them typed across to us as soon as possible before we end the session today. Okay, so I'm going to find a transaction in my list. I'm just going to go back into my transactions listing. This is the one that I have posted earlier. So I've got a bank payment and it's being posted, and unfortunately I've recognized I've used a few incorrect details on that transaction. So I'm just going to show you the impact of some corrections on this particular one. So again, we can do this from within the bank account, or we can do it from the transactions window. And the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to go into edit, and I want to, I'll just say yes to that. I want to edit a non-critical field. Okay, so something that isn't or shouldn't cause a change to my data, but we'll show you that in a moment. So I've posted this to Department 2. We're just going to change that to Department 4. And I'm going to close and save. Do I want to post? Yes, I do. And what you should see is nothing additional has appeared. Okay, if I scroll down to the very bottom and still have this one highlighted, you can see nothing has appeared there as a result of me changing that department, other than the original transaction has updated. So we changed a non-critical field there, okay, and the change was just allowed to take place. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to change the date on this transaction. Okay, so I'm just again going to go into edit and say yes to that. And if I just wanted to change that date slightly, what I just need to do is go into the created on date and change the date. Please bear with me, I am using 2022 data just because that is the demonstration data that we've got set up. So I'm just going to change that back to the 8th of the 12th, 2022 and save. Save again. Yes, we do want to post changes. If I scroll down just past my payment on account, what you can see there is a new transaction. Okay, so the original transaction stays in its place using the same transaction number, but it has the updated date. We have a new transaction at the bottom here for that deleted transaction. So it's actually posted a new transaction that's deleted with the old details, and it clearly marks that that's relating to 1238. Now the same would happen if I changed the nominal code. So we'll quickly do that for you. So if I quickly change the nominal code, so I'm going to leave the bank reference as it is, but I'm going to go into edit and change the nominal code to 7300 and save. So what we've got now is an additional BP. And again, it's referencing back to 1238, and the deleted details are showing in this new transaction. The live transaction, which is 1238, has now updated there. So that's the difference between a critical and a non-critical field. Non-critical just changes. Critical field will post a brand new transaction. Okay, the final thing I'm going to cover in just a moment is bank reconciliation very, very quickly. But I just want to highlight this. So what we've done is we have, on this one here, sorry, we changed the department code first of all. We changed the date that cancelled the original transaction. We changed the nominal code that cancelled the original transaction. So the only one we didn't cover there was the tax code, but it would have exactly the same impact there too. Okay, so I'm going to go back to the slides there. Okay. So what I'm just going to talk about is some further implications. Now, I'm not going to go too in detail with these because we have had dedicated sessions on both of these, and that's the impact on your VAT and bank reconciliation. So far, everything I've touched hasn't been bank or VAT reconciled, okay? But like I say, we've got dedicated 45-minute long sessions on both of those. So if you do want to know those, please do look at our recordings page and watch the recording of those sessions. But I do just want to touch on bank reconciliation a little bit more first. So I'm going to go to a transaction that I have up here. I prepared much earlier. And I'm going to look at this transaction in particular. Okay, now what we can see from this transaction, if we scroll along, is it was reconciled. It was in fact reconciled today. So that has been bank reconciled. Now what happens if I come to delete this? I'll get my normal message that I've been getting this morning because I'm in a previous year. But if I go to delete, I'm going to get a message to say that this has been bank reconciled. And if we delete it, it's going to affect the opening balance. Do I wish to continue? So it will still let me delete it, okay? But it means that when I go to do my reconciliation, my last reconciled balance is going to differ from what it was last time. So ideally, I need to do something to bring that back to be correct. Because if it was reconciled to a certain date, it means that there must have been a transaction for this value that was on the statement. So what I'm going to do is I'm not going to delete this. I just wanted to show you this this option here. What we can do is we can actually look at editing the transaction. So if this has been edited reconciled incorrectly. So for example, you had a couple of transactions with the similar amounts and you've reconciled the wrong one. So I'm going to go into edit on this one. And I'll bring the edit screen over. And what we're looking for is this option here. Okay, so we can see it was bank reconciled. It's got the bank reconciliation date, and it's also got a bank reconciliation reference. Now what I can do is I can also unreconcile it from here. And again, what that will do is that will knock out that last reconcile balance. So if I save that, I get the same message. Okay, so my last reconcile balance is in fact now going to be out. But now what I can do is find the correct transaction, which I'll scroll down here, which is my one that we've been playing with, 1238. And what I can do is I can actually mark this one as reconciled instead. So I can almost replace that building block that we've taken out. So to edit this one, pop to edit. Yes. And what we can do is we can pop the tick into here instead. We can pop in the date. I've just gone completely blank on what date we're on, but never mind. It's nearly Christmas. That's all I know at the moment. And I could pop the reference in as well, which matches. So take note of that one. And then when I save, what that should do is sort of reset my last reconcile balance. Okay, so it's now giving me that message. Say that. So that would pop my bank reconciliation back into its original position. Other considerations when you're doing bank transactions is if they're VAT reconciled. So if you've got a bank payment, for example, and it's VAT reconciled, what will happen is when you come to correct that, it will recognize it's reconciled. So what it will do is it will post a reversal. So if you cancel bank reconcile bank payment, what it will do is post a bank receipt for you, and the software will do that for you. So it does try to make life as easy as possible so that you're not having to do lots of manual reversals. So you'll get something on the screen that indicates, do you want to post a reversal? If you say yes, it will do the work for you, and that will need to be included in your next VAT return. Okay, back to the slides. As mentioned there, we've re-added a reconciled transaction. So we've unreconciled one, we've reconciled a new transaction in its place. And I also mentioned about VAT. And VAT cash accounting is the same for bank payments and bank receipts. Okay, so bank payments, bank receipts are treated the same on both standard and VAT cash accounting. Okay, if you have any questions, now is your opportunity to get them across to us there. We're just over on time, but I'm more than happy to hang on for you. While those questions are coming across though, I do just want to show you our webinars page. So if you go to sage.co.uk/webinars, you will come to this page. And on this page, you can find our recordings. I have mentioned a couple of other webinars for you to listen to. So if you want to have a look at our correction series, we do have a corrections section here. You can see the VAT transactions session and also our bank reconciliation session. So we do have dedicated full sessions on what I've covered in just a couple of minutes. So if you're thinking you want to know a bit more, those are the sessions for you. But as you can see, there are hundreds of webinars that we've done over the time that have been running them, so please do check those out. But in addition, we've got our upcoming webinars. So we are back next week. We've still got another full week. You can see the timetable here. We've got VAT next week. We're looking at year end and also version 31. So if you want to see some of the features that come with version 31, including, very exciting, we have Copilot, then you can get yourself registered for that, and we're going to give you an overview of those new features. But there will be more in-depth webinars on these in the new year. So please do get yourself registered. Beyond that, if you are finishing early for the break, then we have already got January scheduled, and we're looking to have a good spring clean on the data. So if you do think your data is getting a little bit large, it's maybe running a little bit sluggishly, then these are the opportunity for you to have a look at your data and see whether or not a tidy up might help you out. And beyond that, coming in February, we have our Banking Excellence Badge. Okay, so we did a badge for International Accounting Day. It's proving very popular. So we have our next badge available. So that will be ready for sign up very soon. Okay, so just keep that one in mind. Okay, well, it's been very quiet on the questions front. It's been quite a quiet session, so I think I'm going to end the session there. Thank you so much for joining us. Like I say, we are back next week, so if you do have some quieter periods where you can get some training in, maybe join us on a webinar or two next week. In the meantime, though, thank you very much from me. Take care, and we'll see you very soon on one of our webinars. Bye for now.